of Mianwali and damaged some of those phased-out aircraft. 3 aircraft are said to have been damaged. 3 terrorists were killed before they entered the base, and the other 3 had been cornered, the military said in a statement, adding that 3 grounded aircraft and a fuel tanker had been damaged thus far in this attack. The military said an operation is underway to clear the area and did not mention any casualties among security personnel. The Islamist terrorist organization Tehreek-e-Jihad, Pakistan, claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement that was given to journalists by its spokesperson. TJP came to the fore only this year, and little is known about the group, which has carried out a string of high-profile attacks in the country, including killing 12 soldiers at a Pakistani military base in southwestern province of Balochistan in July. Mianwali is considered to be the training base for the Pakistani Air Force. It is centrally located. It's at the outskirts of the Punjab province towards its western border, and it has significance as it is also a centralized airbase for the Pakistani Air Force, and as of now it has been being used as a training base for its upcoming pilots. It is PAF's Northern Command Airbase, and what we understand is that the Tehreek-e-Jihad has claimed a responsibility for the attack it has carried out at this base. Now, at least 3 PAF aircraft damaged is what we understand as of now from the latest news that's coming in. This is the 7th attack by the TJP since its formation in February. What we understand is that the attack was carried out especially by 6 terrorists. They attacked Pakistani security as well. Well, let's take a look at some of those past instances in which the Tehreek-e-Jihad was involved. In March, it had killed 9 security personnel in Quetta, another restive province in Pakistan. In April, suicide attack in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was also being carried out by this particular group, and they killed 14 Frontier Corps security personnel in Balochistan. So it is across the country where the attacks have been carried out by the Tehreek-e-Jihad, and they have specifically targeted Pakistan's security forces. Meanwhile, in May, they had gone ahead and killed 14 Frontier Corps security personnel in Balochistan. Meanwhile, the statements coming in from the ISPR, which is the official public relations office for the Pakistani military, Mianwali Training Airbase of Pakistan Air Force came under attack. Due to the swift and effective response by the troop, it has been foiled. Safety and security of personnel and assets secured. This is the ISPR statement that's come in from their DG office. Meanwhile, the Pak Army has also issued a statement that said that 3 terrorists were neutralized even before they could enter the base. This is what the Pakistani military has said. Remaining 3 terrorists have been cornered due to timely and effective response. Some damage to 3 already grounded aircraft and a fuel bowser is what they have said. Well, this is the big story that we are tracking at this hour. The military of Pakistan is saying that at least 3 of the 6 terrorists have been killed, while 3 others are cornered. There's been a gunfire of sort of exchange between the forces of Pakistan and some of these fighters who have entered the base. 3 of them were killed before they could enter, while 3 have managed to enter this base. 6 terrorists had attacked the Air Force training base in central Pakistani area of Mianwali. This is located in the Punjab province, especially on its western border. 3 terrorists are said to have been neutralized. The military has claimed that at least 3 aircraft, most of them grounded, have been destroyed or have been damaged because of this particular attack. A fuel bowser or a fuel tanker was also destroyed. This is not the first time that this particular organization has claimed a responsibility for this attack. The Islamist terrorist organization Tehreek-e-Jihad has claimed for several kind of attacks on the Pakistani military in the last 1 year, but it has also been spread across the place. One of the biggest issues that is there, especially when it comes to the Pakistani military, is that it has been dealing with several kind of insurgencies, especially in Pakistan, and it has been trying to ensure that these insurgencies are being put down, especially when it comes to its western borders and western provinces. However, a recent activity has seen that some of these attacks are being carried out at all prominent military and high security facilities of Pakistan, and this has been one of the recent ways in which the Pakistani military has been trying to in fact calm down and to go down some of those military organizations or militant organizations that have been trying to target it. Several of them have a different kind of ideologies, but most of them stem from a single group, and there have been a big problem for the Pakistani army when it came to taking them down in some of the restive provinces that borders towards Afghanistan. So these are some of these groups that have tried to in fact infiltrate and attack the bases that are located in some of the crucial strategic areas for the Pakistani military. However, the Pakistani military has been trying to play down on these attacks. The frequency of these attacks have been increasing in the last decade, especially after some of those groups have broken ranks within the Pakistani military, and they have broken ranks with the Pakistani mentors as well, and this has resulted in the kind of situation that we see today as well. The TJP, which has claimed the responsibility for it, is a little known group, but it has carried out several attacks on Pakistani security personnel in the last 1 year alone. Some of them have resulted in deaths of security personnel, while in others damage to some of the key facilities of the Pakistani military. In fact, we have with us Major General retired Jagatbir Singh, who is a distinguished fellow, USI and defense expert, who joins us. Major General, how do you in fact see this particular attack? It seems to be a series of attacks that's happening in Pakistan, especially by terrorist groups. Of course, they say that you will have to in fact one day face the very export factor that you have had. It looks like the snake is finally biting its master.
You're absolutely right about the snake biting its master. That is what Hillary Clinton had said some time ago. History has revealed that the strategically significant frontier lands in Afghanistan and Pakistan have been witness to violence over the centuries. And yet another generation risks life and limb in this, as this region continues to remain in the spotlight. Now, Mianwali is almost next to the Indus River, and that's close to where the last attack at Lucky Mariwat took place. And like you rightly said, lately there have been large number of attacks which have taken place. 17 soldiers have been killed in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the last few weeks. Dera Ismail Khan and Lucky Mariwat are amongst those places. As per a report, since June 2022, 665 militant attacks have taken place in KP province. The Pakistan Institute for Conflict Studies and Security Studies said that the first half of the current year witnessed a steady and alarming rise in terror and suicide attacks, which have claimed over 389 lives across the country. The fact also remains that whether it is the IS, IKP, TTP, Al-Qaeda or Taliban, they have all thrived in this jihadi ecosystem that the Pakistan army has created and sustained. I feel there can be no distinction between terrorists, and unless there is a serious attempt to eliminate terrorism in all its manifestation, there's little solution for such attacks which are taking place in Pakistan.
But Major General, we understand that the kind of breaking that's happening between their official military establishment and the what we call as the proxy armies that they have been having. But why this sudden change has happened? Because we have seen how Pakistan has been giving shelter to some of the biggest extremist organizations. Of course, we know that where Osama bin Laden was also in fact seen. But why is it that now the Pakistani military itself is becoming the target of those forces that it has been caressing for a long time, to a large, I want of a better word, but caressing it for a long time? How is it that there has been suddenly that those forces that Pakistan wanted to use as its allies are turning against it? There should be some kind of a problem then.
There's nothing that alarming about it. Earlier, all focus was on Afghanistan and the foreign presence in Afghanistan. So all these terrorist organizations were united in, evicting the foreign presence in Afghanistan. Now that the Taliban has come about in Afghanistan, the Pakistani government thought that they would sing their tune, which is not happening, because there are certain fault lines that exist between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and one of them being the Durand Line, and the second issue being the issue of Pashtunistan. The Pathans are on either side of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Now, lately, you've also seen the issue of 1.7 million refugees who have spent a large part of their lives in Pakistan being returned to Afghanistan. So this region has never been, that's what I said, has never been free of tensions per se. So these things will keep happening. They're root causes of certain conflicts that need to be addressed. And also, as I had said earlier, you have to address terrorism in all its manifestations. You can't see one terrorist organization is good for us, the other is bad for us. After all, the terrorism remains terrorism, and there can be no distinction against terrorists. And they have to take strict action to eliminate them.
Well, Major General, also one question that is quite crucial over here is Pakistan is a nuclear power. We are seeing attacks. We saw how the Mehran naval base attack was. That was very crucial for Pakistan itself. But then how long before these attacks are actually turned towards fissile material storage sites, or when it comes to a nuclear reactor or a place where in fact nuclear weapons are stored? It's only a matter of time. Shouldn't that be the alarm that the world should be pushing the button on?
Well, that's always the case. The world always talks about Pakistan as a nuclear power, and the responsibility of a nuclear power rests on their shoulders. I'm sure they have taken adequate measures to ensure that their nuclear assets are well dispersed and they're well protected and their locations are known to very few people. So I doubt if you will have a terrorist attack on a nuclear facility at this moment. But the mere fact that the terrorist attacks are shifting gradually eastward in Pakistan is a cause of alarm, and the mere fact that after targeting civilians, they've now started targeting army bases is also a sign of escalation. You rightly got out that many years ago they did target the Mianwali base in Karachi. So these are things which are alarming, and elections are due now. Imran Khan is in jail. The economy is in dire states, but the present army chief, General Munir, has taken steps to rein in, to take in all powers in his hands, and he's trying to address it. But this is one thing that has historically been nurtured by Pakistan, terrorism, and now it's coming back to haunt them in different ways.
Well, this is the big story that we are in fact tracking right now. What we understand is that 3 terrorists have been killed and 3 are being cornered. This is according to the official statement coming in from the Pakistani military. The operations have started to comb the area, and they are also saying that they are securing the assets that are there in this particular base. And also there is a high alert that has been sounded across the military facilities in Pakistan after this early morning attack has been carried out. We have journalist Fahad Malik who joins us from Islamabad. Fahad, what is the latest that is happening? I mean, has the base been sanitized? Have all the terrorists been killed?
Yeah, early morning, as per ISPR's press release, there were 3 terrorists who were being neutralized and 3 were taken into custody. It happened in early morning hours, and by the time we are speaking, the base has been cleared and things are sorted. I would beg to disagree with what the general said about Pakistan being nurturing terrorists, and it has came to haunt us now. Terrorism is a global issue. I believe no country in the world has to suffer from it. And whenever something happens in India, happens in Pakistan, happens even somewhere abroad, people who are being targeted are normal humans. And I think giving statements like that, if somebody is nurturing or somebody is being a target of it, we should not empathize with terrorists.
Well, Fahad, let's in fact look at the story at hand. What is that the base was having? It is being said that phased out aircraft some of them have in fact had damages to it. While is the base is secure, as you say right now, it's a training base, isn't it?
But not exactly. It was training base, but it has some grounded airplanes, and a couple of planes were damaged, and they tried to damage a fuel thing as well. But the planes, major planes that were being grounded there, were not in use. So it was not exactly a functional base, but yeah, it has assets that were damaged.
All right, and Fahad, one of the things that, of course, we are talking about this terror group. What more do we know about it? But it has had a significant impact. It has carried out attacks on Pakistani personnel before as well. So what do we know about this terrorist group? I mean, how powerful they are, and on what is their driving ideology in this?
So there was no mention of this terrorist group in the official press release of the public relations departments of the military. But what I saw is, and there was a press release being circulating on social media. There's a subsidiary of, I would say, of TTP, and they are Tehreek-e-Jihad Pakistan. So TJP. So they claim that they initiated this attack, and there were people who were involved, and there were around 6 terrorists as per their press release. So I think we have nothing more on them as of now, but they are I would call them Team B of TTP. So this is the second. I think this is the second attack that they claim. Before that, it was just TTP, or there was nobody who would come to claim responsibilities of such attacks. So time will tell who they are and how is the Pakistani military and Pakistani government going to deal with them.
Well, one significant aspect of this is that we have seen how terrorists are moving from civilian targets, and they are targeting the Pakistani military, its bases. We've seen how from 2011 the Karachi naval base attack, an Orion aircraft was also destroyed. So why is it that the military has become the target completely now? It's about trying to take over the base, sending out a message. Is it that the relations between the military and these organizations somewhere, of course you might not be able to admit it, but the fact remains that the Pakistan military somewhere is not able to control these insurgent groups?
No, I would very respectfully disagree, because the Pakistan military, as the custodian of the state, as the military force of Pakistan, has always fighting these organizations and these terrorist groups. And you mentioned 2011, and there was a time when such terrorist attacks used to happen every day in Pakistan, and then they came a time when everything was sorted and Pakistani military dealt with them. And now, as we have elections coming up, there's a political instability in Pakistan, and the military is being focused on protecting the borders of states. So it comes as another front to deal with such terrorist groups. And as we have not completely, but we have controlled them to around 70-80%. And now, as we have other things coming up in Pakistan, elections are coming, and things are changing. So this comes as another attempt to, halt the electoral process, to divert the attentions towards other things. And I think it's one of few attacks, and with time, it will be controlled gradually.
Well, also stay with us, Fahad. We have with us Barrister Waqas Airbase, who joins us. He's a political analyst, and he's live with us from Lahore. Barrister Waqas Airbase, of course, we have seen the information coming in with regard to these terror attacks on Pakistan's military bases. Military bases, are they safe? Because it looks like it's not one or two. There have been several in the last decade. Is it a worrying factor for the Pakistani military?
I think this has become the jotter of the day in 2008, 2009, 2007, back as the father had rightly indicated the things. But right now, situation is quite different as comparatively after launching of the two operations known as the Rate Fasad and Zarbul Azam. The Pak army has eliminated and eradicated the wave of the terrorism in Pakistan. So these kind of the attacks, it can be happen anywhere in the world, but after that the retaliation, the defensive policy, that matters a lot. In this case, whatever we have just got from the prevailing circumstances and the news from the media agencies, that the soldiers and the soldiers of the Pak army fought against these terrorists. Three of them were killed at the time of attack, and three was just they are just moving and surrounding around that specific area, meaning thereby the aircraft. I personally believe that these kind of the terrorists and the militant groups, although it's a worrying factor, but in prevailing circumstances, we can predict that these kind of incident can happen because we are going to close the Afghan border. Ultimately, eventually, we have closed the Afghan border, and we are requesting them to go back to their homes because
So
this
you
is
believe that the
ultimate
Afghan border
way.
issue, sorry to interrupt you while you were saying that, but this crucial question is, do you think that the Afghan border or the sending back of Afghan refugees is something that could have resulted in this?
I think that it can strongly impact because why we have closed down the Afghan border, because we had this view that we had so many terrorist groups and organizations from this passage at the grades. That's why we're going to close them, so we can save Pakistan, eliminate these kind of the terrorist groups and the organizations. So in recent past, we had these kind of the worst attacks from this specific passage. So I think this can also impact on these kind of the waves of the terrorism. But the way the soldiers of the POC are fought against these terrorists, and we need to admire and appreciate their effort, because wherever we found any kind of the mortem, whether it's across the border in India, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, wherever it's happening, I think we surely condemn that. We always raise voice against these militant groups, and Pak army and Pakistani have zero tolerance against the terrorists and the militant groups, because these are the worst enemy of the human being anywhere on this earth and anywhere in the universe. So I believe that the retaliation and the retortion from the side of the Pak army, that is worth praising, need to be admired and appreciated. At the same time, there is no clear statement from the side of ISPR. After getting this statement, after getting the press release from the ISPR, I would be very clear, you people would be clear how many terrorists were entered into the airbase and what was the operation, what was the defensive approach opted on the part of the Pakistan army in airbase, and how
But
many of the militants were
Waqas
killed.
Appraise, I mean, we get that part of it, that the Pak military is engaged in a battle of it. But the question is, from the Durand line towards Pakistani Punjab, the provinces from that particular region bordering Afghanistan, they are the restive provinces of Pakistan. So it seems that every time there have been several military operations that have been conducted in this particular region itself. So this region seems to be very restive, and at the same time most of the attacks are coming from several organizations from these regions itself. And then today's attack, of course, this particular group, which we don't have much, is considered to be a subsidiary of TTP, is what we understand. But again, splinter groups after splinter groups. One thing is they're having access to weapons, they have easy access to weapons and ammunition, and they're also having access to get them to these military bases. That security aspect is something that is worrisome.
Yes, I think this is very doleful, dreadful, and awful aspect whether you are talking about. I think this region is very much devastating and destructive, and so far as the point from the point of the terrorism, this has made a greater impact and the worst impact on the wave of the terrorism in Pakistan. Especially if we talk about the 2 days incident or the yesterday night incident taken place in Mianwali Airbase, that is a different region as compared to the Deuteron line, as compared to the KPK or the Afghan border. So in spite of knowing the fact that you have disclosing and indicating the things that these militant groups and the terrorists have easy access to the ammunition. This is the worrying fact. I think after closing the Afghan border and after trying to launch the operation against these militant groups, we need to also protect these kind of the things, and we need to preserve them, because if we are not going to abolish these kind of the access of ammunition from the militant group, it can happen again. So I think firstly, the Pak Army had a very clear stance and a very clear opinion about that. They have the zero tolerance, and they are trying to nip the evil and these kind of the terrorism from the good in Pakistan. So in the recent past, we have also experimented these kind of the things when they launched the different.
Abrez, I'll just go to Fahad Malik as well. In fact, we get that point in fact that the Pakistani military is of course dealing with something like that. But let's go to Malik. One last question before we in fact wrap up on this. Malik, I mean, for anyone looking from outside Pakistan, there is a big worry. The big worry is this: it has its economy in doldrums. There is some kind of political instability. We are looking at elections, great if it happens, but there is political instability. The Pakistani army, which is said to be the only stable factor in a country like Pakistan, and at the same time, the very organization that looks into everything that Pakistan has, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's about its internal way of administration, everything falls on its shoulders. Right now, everything seems to be a little unstable. You said that they did carry out, but everything seems to be unstable. We are talking about separatist movements also taking place within Pakistan. So there are several organizations that have weapons with them, several organizations with ammunition with them, and they have these attacks just show that they can attack anytime at their will and at their whims and fancies. Whenever they want, they can target a Pakistani base. I think that is the worry that the world is looking at. And the one question that I was asking our Major General also was that Pakistan being a nuclear weapon, it's only a time before these terrorists actually train their guns on areas that could in fact have weapon storage or fissile materials, or even could be a Pak nuclear reactor. Are you worried?
I would like to clarify that this is how you, as an outsider, would look at things. While you're living in this country, and when you see the security protocols that are being implemented for not just sensitive sites, but in general, because terrorism is a major issue that we have been facing since decades. So nuclear assets, nuclear properties, anything that has to deal with the military, that has to deal with the defense of Pakistan or the defense of the state, they are not easily accessible. Security lapses happen all around the world, just like this terrorist attack, and it was not very damaging. They just damaged a grounded plane, and they just tried to enter it, and they were neutralized. So had it been an unsecure situation, or had the Pakistani military had been sleeping, they would have done damage that could have, they could have caused a bigger damage. So I think the military of Pakistan, all the security forces, all the law enforcement agencies are very much active and very much aware of the threats that they are facing. And it's not going to happen very soon. And I think we are a protected state and we are in good hands. So the world which is actually looking at us should not worry. Security lapses happen all around the world. They have happened in India.
Fahad, I get the point. I mean, we don't have much of time, but I get the point, and may your confidence guide you, is what I would like to say. With that, we in fact move on to the next part of it. The terror attack comes even as thousands of undocumented Afghans have been asked to leave Pakistan. Let's listen in.
Swamped with thousands of people seeking to cross into Afghanistan on Thursday, a day after the government's deadline passed for to leave.
We don't want to go to Afghanistan, but these people are not allowing us to stay. My family has been living here for 50 years, but now they are not allowing them to stay.
These people are being very cruel to us. If they'd given us 4 or 5 months more, we could have spent the winter here in comfort. Then, God willing, we would have gone back to our country.
Pakistani authorities began rounding up undocumented foreigners hours before the deadline. More than 1 million Afghans could have to leave or face arrest and forcible expulsion as a result of the ultimatum delivered by the Pakistan government a month ago. The government has brushed off calls from the United Nations, rights groups, and Western embassies to reconsider its expulsion plan. It says Afghans have been involved in Islamist militant attacks and in crime that undermine the security of the country.
The situation at the border points at the moment is completely overwhelming.
Becky Robbie is advocacy manager for the Norwegian Refugee Council.
We're seeing somewhere between 9,000 and 10,000 people between both border points crossing on a daily basis. And when people reach the border point, normally they have been traveling already for several days. They've been sleeping out in the open. In many cases, they've had to sell their personal belongings to pay for the transport. They've often left in a very hurried circumstance.
Of the more than 4 million Afghans living in Pakistan, the government estimates 1.7 million are undocumented. Many fled during the decades of armed conflict in Afghanistan, while the Taliban's takeover after the withdrawal of U.S.-led coalition forces in 2021 led to another exodus. Aid agencies warn that the mass movement of people could tip Afghanistan into yet another crisis, and have expressed grave concerns about the survival and reintegration of the returnees, particularly with the onset of winter.
At least 150 people were killed and many injured after a devastating earthquake with a magnitude of 6.4 struck northwestern districts of Nepal. The earthquake's impact extended as far as India's capital, New Delhi, and the national capital region, which is more than 800 kilometers away. In Nepal's Jajarkot, a 6.4 magnitude earthquake caused houses to collapse, resulting in the deaths of at least 128 people and injuries to several others. Officials expressed concern that the death toll should increase due to communications disruptions in many affected areas. The U.S. Geological Survey initially reported that the earthquake's magnitude as 5.6 with a depth of almost 11 miles, while Nepal's National Earthquake Monitoring and Research Center identified the epicenter in Jajarkot, approximately 250 miles northeast of Kathmandu, which is the capital of Nepal. Following the powerful earthquake, both helicopters and ground troops were rapidly deployed for rescue and assistance efforts. As dawn broke, rescue helicopters were sent to the affected areas, and security forces on the ground diligently worked to extract the injured and rescue those trapped in the debris, as stated by the Nepalese police. Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dahal visited affected areas by helicopter and took stock of the situation. 3 helicopters have been prepared for now to fly to the earthquake-affected areas, carrying medical teams and medicines to Jajarkot. These are in fact visuals of the rescue that is happening in some of these areas that have seen the brunt of the earthquake. This is in Jajarkot in Nepal, where the earthquake happened, and rescue is in fact happening in those areas. People have been injured. Medical teams have also been airlifted to that location to carry on with the rescue works in Jajarkot. Meanwhile, the helicopters have also been deployed for the rescue work. The Prime Minister of Nepal has also visited the areas that have been affected by the earthquake. It is being said to be a 6.4 magnitude earthquake that has struck the region, and the tremors were in fact felt in the national capital of India as well, which is around 800 kilometers from the epicenter. Several houses were destroyed in this earthquake. Most of them were in the Jajarkot area, and 128 people are said to have died in this earthquake, and rescue efforts are going on in other areas. Meanwhile, some areas where the roads have collapsed, the authorities are trying to restore connectivity as fast as possible. Meanwhile, essential supplies are being flown in from the bases near the epicenter. Well, the earthquake had its epicenter at Jajarkot. This is the mid-western region of Nepal and is fairly densely populated. The hilly district is around 500 kilometers from Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. Rescue workers are trying to clear the roads to reach the affected region. Meanwhile, Nepalese Prime Minister Pushpat Kamal Damal visited the earthquake-affected areas by helicopter and taking stock of the situation. 3 helicopters have been prepared for now to fly to the earthquake-affected areas, carrying the medical teams and medicines in Jajarkot. Up till now, officials have stated that these helicopters will be dispatched from Kathmandu as soon as the weather conditions improve in Nepal. Prime Minister Modi has also tweeted about the earthquake. Deeply saddened by loss of lives and damages due to the earthquake in Nepal, India stands in solidarity with the people of Nepal and is ready to extend all possible assistance. Our thoughts are with the bereaved families and we wish them full recovery. That was the response coming in from the PMO in India over this tragic incident in Nepal. This is the kind of damage that has been witnessed in Jajarkot in Nepal, where houses have collapsed. Most of them are made from bricks and sand constructions, and the earthquake in that hilly town has completely cut it away from any sort of connectivity, and essential supplies are being flown into the region. It is now day 28 of the Israel-Hamas war. Let's take a look at what is happening on that front. Well, as the war between Israel and Hamas continues, Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected U.S. calls for a humanitarian pause in the Gaza region. Netanyahu said that no ceasefire with Hamas is possible until hostages are freed. He stressed that Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that doesn't include the release of hostages. Our victor will be singular and clear. It will deliver the message to our enemies, a message that will resonate for generations. The goal of our enemies is the destruction of the state of Israel, and I say to you, I say to them, our enemies will fail. As relates to the north, I repeat and say to our enemies, do not mistake us. A mistake will cost you dearly. A mistake will cost you something you cannot even imagine. In the meantime, we continue to act on the diplomatic front. This morning, I met with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. I welcomed his message here. I welcome that of President Biden and the American nation. I showed Secretary of State Blinken, I showed him a video clip from one of the cameras from the Gaza Strip. He spoke about this. In it, 2 youngsters, brothers, watched their father murdered. One of them has lost his sight, calls out to his mother. That's just a small part of the horrors in that video clip. I conveyed that we are proceeding with all our might, and Israel refuses any temporary ceasefire that does not include the return of our kidnapped hostages. Israel will not permit the transfer of fuel to Gaza Strip and oppose the transfer of funding to Gaza. Citizens of Israel, from the outbreak of war on the Black Sabbath, we have lost many civilians, fighters, soldiers, members of the security services, police and emergency workers. We've lost incredible combat soldiers, beloved Israelis, salt of the earth, people who fought with their bodies, their nails against these monsters. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken in Tel Aviv. The United States top diplomat is in the region for the second time in less than a month to push for the humanitarian pauses in the Gaza war. He emphasized Israel's right to take all necessary measures to prevent recurrence of the October 7th attack. However, he also stressed the importance of how Israel conducts these actions, particularly in safeguarding the well-being of civilians affected by the conflict initiated by Hamas. He said that Israel must protect civilians in its bombardment of Gaza. Blinken's visit comes after Israel said that its troops had surrounded the Palestinian enclave's biggest city, the focus of its drive to wipe out Hamas. The White House had earlier said that any pauses in fighting should be temporary and localized. It has dismissed calls for Arab and several other nations for a full ceasefire in the war, which is now entering its 29th day.
To make clear that as long as the United States stands, Israel will never stand alone. Today, in my fourth visit to Israel since October 7th, I reiterated that in all my discussions with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Herzog, the Security Cabinet. I reiterated and made clear our support for Israel's right to defend itself, indeed its obligation to defend itself. That includes through the additional assistance that we've worked with Congress and we're working with Congress now to provide for Israel's defense, as well as for urgent humanitarian needs in Gaza. This right to self-defense, indeed this obligation to self-defense, belongs to every nation. No country could or should tolerate the slaughter of innocents. You've heard me speak to some of the stories that Israelis have experienced on October 7th. Today, we saw additional images, additional footage collected by the Israeli government from video cameras, some the terrorists' own, others in communities that were attacked. It remains almost beyond the human capacity to process, to digest.
Moving on, after the Enforcement Directorate made startling claims that a courier caught with over rupees 5 crore in cash told the agency that the promoters of the Mahadev betting app paid Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel rupees 508 crores, a political storm has erupted over the controversy. With elections just round the corner, sensing an opportunity, the BJP has seized upon the controversy. BJP leaders have stated that this is what they have been alleging for months. Union Minister Smriti Irani alleged that Chhattisgarh Chief Minister was using the betting money to fund the Congress campaign in Chhattisgarh. Reacting to Irani's allegations, Congress General Secretary in charge of communication Jairam Ramesh said that it was only want to say that this is a clear misuse, it is revenge politics.
कि छत्तीसगढ़ में भारतीय जनता पार्टी भुखलाई हुई है, घबराहट में है, अत्यंत परेशानी में है, क्योंकि उन्होंने साफ देख लिया है कि छत्तीसगढ़ की आम जनता स्पष्ट रूप से बहुमत कांग्रेस को ही देने वाली है। इसीलिए आखिरी दिनों में ईडी का भरपूर दुरुपयोग किया जा रहा है और अभी सिंघवी साहब ने आपको बताया है कि मार्च 2022 से लेकर छत्तीसगढ़ सरकार कार्रवाई कर रही है। इसकी जानकारी आपको दी जाएगी विस्तार से। जो कार्रवाई की गई है छत्तीसगढ़ की सरकार से, छापे मारे गए हैं दिल्ली में, उड़ीसा में, मध्य प्रदेश में, पर दुबई में तो हम छापा नहीं मार सकते ना। दुबई में तो सिर्फ केंद्र सरकार कार्रवाई कर सकती है। एक मामले में जो अभी लोकसभा एथिक्स कमेटी के सामने है, उसमें तो खूब दुबई की बात होती है, पर इस मामले में महादेव ऐप के बारे में दुबई में जो कार्रवाई करनी है, अभी तक केंद्र सरकार ने उसके ऊपर कुछ किया नहीं है। हालांकि ऑनलाइन बेटिंग को 28% जीएसटी भी लागू कर दिया है, इसको कानूनी दर्जा दिया गया है। ये गैर कानूनी नहीं है, इसको कानूनी बना दिया है और उसके ऊपर 28% जीएसटी भी लगाया दिया। तो ये बिल्कुल साफ है। और कल आपने देखा होगा, पढ़ा होगा, बीजेपी सरकार ने अपनी घोषणा पत्र निकाला है छत्तीसगढ़ में। जो रेवड़ी की आलोचना करते थे प्रधानमंत्री, जो हमारे गारंटी की आलोचना करते थे ये प्रधानमंत्री, कल हमारे बीजेपी की ओर से जो घोषणा पत्र निकाला गया है वो सिर्फ नकलची घोषणा पत्र है।
There is elections. The main weapon for BJP become Enforcement Directorate or Income Tax Department. We saw in Karnataka elections, during the election itself, they raided more than 100 Congress candidates. Now almost 8-9 months over, nobody knew about the follow-up of that raids. After the elections, Congress got 136 seats and we are now ruling Karnataka. Now all the states, 5 states, including Mizoram, Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Telangana, public mood is very clear. In all these states, Congress is going to form the government.
कि छत्तीसगढ़ में बुरी हार की तरफ अग्रसर है बीजेपी। पूरी दुनिया जानती है, वो जानते हैं, और हर मापदंड से ये सर्वविदित है। यह भी सर्वविदित है कि ईडी के साथ साझेदारी कह लीजिए, पार्टनरशिप, गठबंधन कह लीजिए, सहयोग कह लीजिए, ईडी के साथ साझेदारी, गठबंधन और सहयोग बीजेपी सरकार और बीजेपी पार्टी का तीव्रता से बढ़ रहा है जैसे जैसे वो हार उनके पास आ रही है। लेकिन ऐसे मापदंडों के बाद भी इतनी घृणात्मक स्थिति पहुंचाएगी ये सरकार बीजेपी वाली और बीजेपी पार्टी, ये मैं समझता हूं इस देश ने सोचा नहीं था। और ये क्यों घृणात्मक बताना चाहता हूं आपको, जो उन्होंने खुद ने कीर्तिमान और मापदंड और मील पत्थर स्थापित किए उनसे भी आगे जाता है ये केस। ये इसमें एक मजाकिया बात यह है कि 1.5 वर्ष पहले जो पहला कोतवाल है यानी छत्तीसगढ़ पुलिस, वो पहला कोतवाल जांच शुरू कर देता है, अभियुक्त बना देता है, बहुत सारी चीजें जब्त कर लेता है, और उसके 1.5 साल बाद चुनाव के बीच में 4 दिन बचे हैं पहले प्रसंग के और 15 दिन में सब कुछ ओवर है छत्तीसगढ़ में। उसके 1.5 साल बाद दूसरा कोतवाल छलांग लगाता है केंद्र सरकार के निर्देश पे यानी ईडी, और कई कर्मचारियों के ऊपर प्रताड़नाएं करता है, जो बताने वाला हूं मैं आपको किस प्रकार की प्रताड़नाएं। तो ये जाहिर है कि ऐसे ही नहीं बनाया गया है फर्जी मामला, ऐसे ही नहीं कस रहे हैं नकेल, क्योंकि वो जानते हैं कि जीत रहे हैं भूपेश बघेल।
Notably, in its remand application for the Korean court, the agency stated that the facts need to be independently corroborated by this directorate. That was Hadwidran. Meanwhile, let us in fact take a look at how climate change is playing havoc across the world. Meanwhile, this is for the third consecutive day this week that Delhi's air quality remains at a severe level with an air quality index at 504. Over the past week, the air quality in Delhi NCR has worsened primarily due to gradual decrease in temperatures, stagnant winds that trap pollutants, and an increase in the burning of post-harvest paddy straw in Punjab and Haryana. This is the kind of fog that is seen, and especially with the smoke entering, and this is some of Delhi's monuments as well as landmarks seen through the haze that was captured in the morning by the camera. It just shows how the haze has covered the entire Delhi NCR region, and of course the post burning of the harvest paddy straw in Punjab and Haryana is contributing to it.
स्थिति बहुत ज़्यादा खराब है। खांसी, जुकाम और आंखों में जलन बहुत ज़्यादा हो रही है। बच्चे भी बीमार पड़े हैं, बच्चे को बाहर नहीं घुमा सकते, और हम भी बहुत कम घूमते हैं। पहले ज़्यादा घूमते थे, अब इसकी वजह से बहुत कम घूमते हैं, और जो गवर्नमेंट कुछ नहीं कर रही इस बारे में।
प्रदूषण का हिसाब किताब बहुत तगड़ा चल रहा है। इसकी बच्चों के लिए बहुत नुकसान हो रहा है। सरकार से कहना चाहिए कुछ बंदोबस्त करे, प्रणाली का बचत करे, कि पंजाब से प्रणाली बहुत जगह धुआं आ रहा है, इस वजह से अपना हिसाब गवर्नमेंट ने करना चाहिए।
प्रदूषण तो अब 3-4 दिन से कुछ ज़्यादा ही हो रहा है। अब थोड़ी सांस लेने में खंखार वगैरह ये आते हैं, कड़वापन है।
के अंदर पिछले 2 दिनों में जिस तरह से प्रदूषण की स्थिति में बढ़ोतरी हो रही थी, उसको देखते हुए दिल्ली में कल से कंस्ट्रक्शन पे प्रतिबंध लगाया गया, गाड़ियों पे प्रतिबंध लगाया गया, पानी का छिड़काव शुरू हुआ। आज हम देख रहे हैं कि कल की अपेक्षा आज प्रदूषण के स्तर में सुधार देखा जा रहा है और सुबह जो AQI था वो 407 पर था, लेकिन अभी भी ये गंभीर स्थिति में है और उसको देखते हुए दिल्ली के अंदर जो है हमारी कोशिश ये है कि ग्रैब 3 के जो नियम है, जो व्हीकल पोल्यूशन है, डस्ट पोल्यूशन है, उसको ख़ास तौर से रोका जाए। साथ ही साथ केंद्र सरकार से हमने अभी आज चिट्ठी मैं लिख रहा हूँ कि पर्यावरण मंत्री तुरंत जो है वो 5 राज्य के पर्यावरण मंत्रियों की इमरजेंसी मीटिंग कॉल करें, क्योंकि हम ये देख रहे हैं कि CA-QM का आदेश भी राज्यों में लागू नहीं किया जा रहा है। CA-QM ने आदेश दिया था कि 1 नवंबर से डीजल की जो बसें हैं BS3 और BS4 वो NCR में नहीं चलेंगी, दिल्ली के अंदर नहीं भेजी जाएंगी। लेकिन कल रात में आनंद विहार खुद गया 11:30 बजे और वहाँ हमने देखा कि उत्तर प्रदेश से सारी जो बसें हैं वो BS3 और BS4 की ही दिल्ली में भेजी जा रही हैं। तो अभी ज़रूरत ये है कि नियम तो बन रहे हैं, CA-QM डायरेक्शन भी दे रहा है, लेकिन मैं देख रहा हूँ कि पूरे NCR के अंदर उत्तर प्रदेश हरियाणा में पूरी तरह से जो है सारे आदेशों का जो है उल्लंघन किया जा रहा है, कोई मानने को तैयार नहीं है। जब तक सभी लोग नहीं मानेंगे, क्योंकि ये पूरे उत्तर भारत की समस्या है और सभी लोगों को उसका फॉलो करना पड़ेगा, तभी इसका समाधान हो सकता है।
Well, that's all in this edition of the Bulletin. Stay tuned to News 9 for further updates.